moments when the ultimate luxury becomes the ultimate trap. We're going to downtown Los Angeles, to a place where the view from the top costs more than just money. This is the story of the Halloween Penthouse. On October 31st, 2019, tech investor Landon Pierce threw the party of the year. The location, the 53rd floor penthouse of the Aurelian Tower, one of LA's most exclusive addresses. The guest list was a who's who of Hollywood. Influencers, celebrities, and executives, all dressed in elaborate costumes. Champagne flowed, a DJ spun tracks, and the city glittered below through floor-to-ceiling glass walls. It was the picture of success, but the Aurelian Tower penthouse had a secret. Before Landon, no tenant had ever lasted more than a month. They would break their lease abruptly, flee the country, or just disappear. When Landon heard these rumors, he just laughed it off, joking that the place had bad Yelp energy. It was a joke he would come to regret before the night was over. As the party pulsed with life, with neon lights and costumed figures dancing, no one noticed the reflections in the panoramic windows. They didn't quite match the movements of the crowd. A subtle distortion, a trick of the light, or something else watching from the glass. The city lights sparkled, oblivious to the fact that high above them, the night was about to take a terrifying turn. Just before midnight, as the clock ticked towards the witching hour, the party moved to the expansive terrace. The plan was to watch the city's fireworks display, a perfect end to a perfect night. Landon's girlfriend, Sienna, gathered a group of friends for a selfie. With the breathtaking LA skyline as their backdrop, she smiled, held up her phone, and snapped the picture. When she looked down at the screen, her smile vanished. There, standing behind her and her friends in the photo, was an extra person. A tall, slender man in a classic tuxedo. His face was a blur, completely indistinct, but his presence was undeniable. A cold dread washed over Sienna. She looked around. No one matched his description. No one remembered seeing him. Panicked, she tried to delete the photo, but her phone wouldn't respond. It froze. The screen began to glitch, a cascade of digital static, and then the image reappeared. It was the same selfie, but this time, it was different. Horrifyingly different. In the photo, the eyes of every single person, including her own, were now just empty, black voids. The city lights reflected in them, but there was no life, just darkness. The party's energy shifted. A sense of unease began to ripple through the crowd. Around 12:15 a.m., guests decided to call it a night. They headed for the elevators, but the call button was unresponsive. The display panel was frozen, showing the elevator was stuck one floor below, on 52. But the security cameras for that floor showed an empty hallway. No one was holding the doors. No one was inside. Then it began. The lights in the penthouse flickered violently, plunging the room into momentary darkness before buzzing back to life. The chill EDM track that had been playing all night abruptly cut out, replaced by a suffocating silence. And then, the most impossible thing happened. The entire Los Angeles skyline, the sea of millions of lights stretching to the horizon, just went black, as if the city itself had been erased from existence. A collective gasp filled the room. All eyes turned to the massive mirrored wall that ran the length of the main living area. In the reflection, the figure from Sienna's photo, the tall, faceless man in the tuxedo, was now standing in the center of the reflected room. And then he started to move. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, out of sync with reality. As he walked towards them in the mirror, a new sound emerged. A faint, dry whisper. One by one, guests began to hear their own names, spoken from just behind their shoulders. A video, later recovered from a guest's dropped phone, captured the final horrifying moments. It shows the reflection of the faceless man, up close, and in the glass, it begins to smile, a wide, terrifying grin, even though it has no mouth. The chaos in the penthouse was mirrored by confusion in the building's security control room downstairs. At exactly 12:21 a.m., security operators watched their monitors circuitous with alarm. Every single cell phone in the penthouse, dozens of them, had simultaneously started dialing the same number. It was an unlisted, untraceable line. After days of investigation, it was eventually traced back to the original developer of the Aurelian Tower, a man who had been dead since 2001. As the operators tried to make sense of it, their systems glitched. The thermal imaging camera's Bowen footage for the building suddenly showed the impossible. For 3 full minutes, from 12:21 to 12:24 a.m., the entire 53rd floor penthouse vanished from the thermal feed. No heat signatures, no electricity, no people. It was as if the top of the building had been carved out and replaced with a block of ice. Then, just as suddenly as it went dark, the feed returned. The lights in the penthouse were on, but it was completely empty. The music was off, the people were gone. The only evidence that a party had ever happened were the half-full champagne glasses, a few discarded masks on the floor, and a chilling absolute silence. 2 weeks later, the penthouse was back on the market. A new listing appeared on a luxury real estate website. Same address, same square footage, same jaw-dropping price. But the photos were wrong. In each picture of the gleaming, empty rooms, if you looked closely at the windows and mirrored surfaces, you could see them. Faint, translucent silhouettes. The unmistakable shapes of Landon, Sienna, and their party guests, forever trapped in the reflections. The story doesn't end there. To this day, maintenance crews at the Aurelian Tower report strange occurrences on Halloween night. They say if you look up at the top floor, you can see the reflections of a party Schauffager in full swing. Lights manav, figures dancing, champagne glasses clinking in the windows of a room that is, and has been, completely empty. If you ask the building's management about the 53rd floor penthouse today, they'll give you a strange look. They'll tell you there is no penthouse. They'll tell you the building ends at floor 52. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the unknown. Stay safe out there and always be careful of the view from the top. In the autumn of 2007, a chill was already settling over rural Pennsylvania, but the excitement of Halloween was just beginning to warm the air. For Mark and Jenna Willis, a young couple from near Philadelphia, the main event was Ravenwood Farm. It was famous for its annual Halloween maze and pumpkin field, a sprawling festival of frights and fun that drew crowds from all over. They arrived just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long skeletal shadows across the landscape. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of hay and the distant, happy screams of people getting lost in the corn maze. Jenna, an early adopter of the then-fledgling YouTube scene, had her small video camera ready. She wanted to capture every moment for their channel. They paid their entry fee and joined the line of people shuffling into the towering corn maze. The stalks rustled around them, whispering secrets on the breeze. Jack-o'-lanterns, carved with ghoulish grins, flickered atop posts, their candle flames dancing. Actors in grotesque masks would leap out from hidden corners, earning shrieks and nervous laughter. It was everything you'd want from a Halloween night out. Festive, a little spooky, and full of life. After navigating the maze's twists and turns for what felt like an hour, they emerged into a vast, open clearing. This was the main attraction, the pumpkin field. It wasn't just a patch where you picked your own pumpkin. Here, hundreds of large, intricately carved gourds were arranged in massive concentric circles, their orange light creating a mesmerizing, glowing labyrinth. A low-lying fog had started to roll in, hugging the ground and softening the edges of the world, making the scene feel even more dreamlike and isolated. At 9:13 p.m., as they wandered through the glowing rings, a cold draft swept across the field, making Jenna shiver. That's when she saw it. Set apart from the others, just beyond the outer circle, was a single pumpkin. It wasn't glowing with the warm, familiar orange of the others. This one shone with a pale, ethereal white light. Curious, she pointed it out to Mark. He walked over, camera still in hand, to get a closer look. As he approached, he noticed something strange. The pumpkin's face wasn't carved. There were no holes for eyes or a mouth. Instead, the white glow seemed to emanate from within, backlighting a faint silhouette pressed against the inside of the shell. It looked like a small person, crouched down, hiding inside the pumpkin. Mark kept filming as he slowly circled the strange, white glowing pumpkin. He zoomed in with his camera, trying to get a clearer view of the shape inside. The silhouette was unmistakable now. It looked exactly like a small child, sitting cross-legged, gently rocking back and forth. The movement was rhythmic, almost hypnotic. It was unnerving, yet they couldn't look away. The festive atmosphere of the farm suddenly felt very, very far away. Jenna, her voice barely a whisper, called out into the fog, "Are you okay?" The moment the words left her lips, the rocking stopped. The silhouette inside the pumpkin froze. A profound silence fell over their small section of the field, the distant laughter from the maze seeming to vanish. Then, a voice, a child's whisper, drifted out of the thick fog, seeming to come from all around them at once. "Come closer." Jenna let out a small gasp and stumbled backward. Mark instinctively spun around, panning the camera across the foggy expanse, searching for the source of the voice. But there was no one there. When he turned the camera back to the pumpkin, the silhouette was gone. The pumpkin still glowed its stark white, but now it was just an empty, illuminated shell. A deep, primal fear took hold. The fun was over. They turned and hurried away from the field, heading back towards the main entrance. But the fog had grown thicker, heavier. It swallowed the festive lights, reducing them to dim, hazy blurs in the distance. The familiar path seemed to have changed. Every so often, as they glanced back, the distant pumpkins seemed to flicker, and in the corner of their eyes, they caught fleeting movements in the shadows behind them. When they finally reached the relative safety of the parking lot and found their car, Jenna dared one last look back towards the field. Through a break in the fog, she could see it. The white glowing pumpkin was still there, but its light seemed brighter, more intense now. And standing just behind it, shrouded in the mist, was the small, dark figure of a child, motionless, just watching them. They sped away from Ravenwood Farm. The image of the figure in the fog burned into their minds. Back home, they tried to shake off the unsettling experience, dismissing it as an elaborate part of the farm's Halloween setup. They went to bed, hoping to forget the whole thing. But the night wasn't over. Around midnight, a soft whirring sound woke Jenna. It was the video camera sitting on their dresser. Its little red recording light was on. It had started filming by itself. Confused and a little spooked, Jenna got up and checked the playback on the camera's small screen. The timestamp read 11:59 p.m. The footage wasn't of their dark bedroom. It was a view of their own backyard, and sitting there on their porch amongst the few ordinary pumpkins they'd set out for decoration was the white glowing pumpkin from the farm. "Mark, wake up," she whispered, her voice trembling. They rushed to the back door and peered outside. There was nothing there. Their own pumpkins sat on the porch exactly as they had left them, cold and dark. The backyard was empty. They returned to the bedroom, and Jenna replayed the strange footage. On the tiny screen, they watched as one of their porch lights flickered erratically. In the next frame, the white glowing pumpkin was simply gone. It vanished in the blink of an eye. On the camera's audio, Jenna's own shaky voice could be heard from moments before, a terrified realization dawning on her. It had followed us home. A heavy silence filled the room. The only sound was the faint electronic hum of the camera. The fear was no longer a distant memory from a farm. It was here, in their house. They didn't sleep for the rest of the night, jumping at every creak and shadow, wondering what they had brought back with them from that field. They felt watched, hunted. The barrier between a fun Halloween story and their reality had dissolved into the cold night air. The next morning, in the harsh light of day, the fear felt more tangible. When Mark went to check the porch, the small, uncarved pumpkins they had bought at the grocery store were gone. Only the big jack-o'-lantern they'd carved together remained. It was as if something had come and collected them. Panicked, Mark tried to review the footage from the farm on his computer, hoping to find some logical explanation. But the files were corrupted. The entire segment where they encountered the white glowing pumpkin had been mysteriously erased. In its place was a single glitched frame that wouldn't go away. It was a blurry, close-up image of a pair of small, bare feet standing on dark, black soil. A few months later, news spread that Ravenwood Farm had permanently closed its famous Halloween event. The official reason cited was structural issues with the maze. But local rumors told a different story. They whispered that on Halloween nights, when the air is still and there's no wind, you can sometimes hear the faint, rhythmic sound of rocking coming from the overgrown corn stalks at the old farm site. And if you're brave or foolish enough to look, you might just see a single, pale, white glow flicker to life deep within the fog. Mark and Jenna moved out of that house a month after the incident. They couldn't stand the feeling of being watched, the memory of what had appeared in their backyard. They kept the camera, but the file containing the backyard footage became locked, protected by a password neither of them remembers setting. They've tried to move on, to put that night behind them. But some things don't let you go. Every year, on Halloween, they receive an email from an unknown sender. There's never any text in the body, and the sender address is always a random string of characters. But the subject line is always the same. It's time again. So, if you ever find yourself wandering through a pumpkin field late on a Halloween night, take a good look around. If you see one pumpkin shining with a strange, white light among all the orange, my advice is to turn and walk away. Don't get closer. Don't be curious. And whatever you do, don't blink. Because some lights aren't there to welcome you. They're there to mark you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there.